Bethany will be recording this, so we'll make it available to you, Dr. K, so you can show off to your colleagues that we're not able to make it.
Yeah, as if, but thank you.
I know there was a lot of interest on your Facebook there, so.
Yeah, there was. Carolyn popped in from that interest. Oh, there we go. If I click over here, way over here, not anywhere near the chat button. Got it. Holy mackerel. I'm so not a Zoom person yet.
Okay, so I'm going to start sharing my screen now. So I have a few slides to go over. Can you see?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so this is our, will this disappear if I mouse over it or what?
Keep your mouth off of it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is our May 2020 event. It's called Usability Tales from Dr. Karla Kitalong. We're here to celebrate her illustrious career in the technical communication field. Our agenda for today. We're going to welcome our members and friends of the chapter. I'll give you a little bit of an update on the election that we have coming up next month, and then we'll turn it over to Dr. Kitalong. She'll have some opening remarks, and then we'll move into an open forum on usability and user-centered design. And then we'll do a toast or some well wishes around the call. So some chapter announcements about the chapter. This is STC. There's our mission and vision for the entire society. You can visit our main website, or stc.org. We are the preeminent organization in technical communication. Been around since about the 50s or so. And we are the Florida Chapter. You can find us at stcflorida.org, and there's our Facebook link, facebook.com/STCOrlando, and twitter.com/STCOrlando. At our website, you can find our values, mission, and vision statements, and I will share these slides later on so you can go through them. Okay, so first up, our election update. Our election is scheduled to take place at the end of June. The date of our final virtual banquet for this year, which is still up in the air. But as of today, running for president will be our current president, Deborah Johnson, and there you see her biography. She has over 25 years in experience and has been with the STC chapter since 2010, holding many positions throughout the years. So we're glad to have Deborah continue on as president. Deborah, if you want to chime in, or if you have something.
Yes, and I'm very happy to, and I'm hoping that the next month or two, everything's going to get back to normal, or at least I'll be, present a little bit more. I'm feeling really good, and I've had a lot of well wishes and everything, so I'm excited. I'm excited to continue on supporting the group and working with the others to do all the outstanding stuff that we've done and accomplishments that we've had as a chapter. So I'm excited about it.
Excellent. And again, I will mention that these are elected positions, but you're not leading in a vacuum. You're always surrounded by a very capable administrative council of committee chairs and volunteers to make the chapter go forward. So next up for treasurer returning is W.C. Weiss, with over 45 years experience in aerospace marketing support, many positions within STC, within the chapter level, and at the international level. Former board member of the society, and so he'll be running once again for treasurer if WC is on the line and wants to share some thoughts.
Very proud of our chapter. Very happy to be a part of it, and hopefully I don't spend all your money this year.
Well, we look forward to having you again this year, WC. And now, if I want to make an announcement, Donnell Clausen, formerly of the STC Space Tech chapter over on the Space Coast, has announced her candidacy for director at large at the STC Florida Chapter. She's a senior member in STC and the co-manager of the Policies and Procedures SIG. She's an amazing advisor to many chapters throughout the society, and we are very humbled to have her on the administrative council for next year. And she wasn't able to be here with us tonight, but she's very excited to come into the fold. So, and I will be continuing as immediate past president. I've been with the society since I was a student member in 2004, and continued on through senior member. I've held many positions throughout the chapter, was president from 2016 through 2018, and now I'm the vice chair of the Community Affairs Committee at the society level. So again, I'll be, along with Donnell, will be acting in an advisory role to the chapter as part of the voting administrative council, and really trying to grow the leadership and develop the leadership skills around the chapter, which brings me to an open position. We have the chapter secretary, and if you are interested, contact me at alexrgarcia.stc@gmail.com as soon as possible, and you have the job description there. And really what it entails is at least one chapter or administrative council meeting a month, and then taking minutes for those meetings, and doing kind of the administrative record keeping of those meeting minutes, and anything that's called upon by the council of basically record keeping. So if you're interested, definitely let me know, and we will get you on the slate. And again, you'll be surrounded by some really capable leaders that can guide you and develop your leadership skills. So are there any questions about these positions? We good? Okay. So now the virtual floor is yours, Dr. Kitalong. We want to congratulate you on your retirement and a long career in the technical communication field. So I will stop sharing my screen and you can share yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let me see if I can present a window, a Chrome tab. That's what I want to present. This one. No? This one. Okay. Somewhere here, maybe under View. I never can figure out how to make this Chrome version display properly, but I'll just do this because this is what I do when I can't make it work. Alex asked me he titled my talk Usability Tales. And I'm really thankful to have an opportunity to talk to this group today because my usability tales, stop. Share this tab instead. What does it want me to do?
If
Are
you
you
click
seeing
share
my-
this tab instead, it'll go to the tab you want instead of the one that it was.
Okay, this is the tab I want. So is it showing? Do you see a chalkboard with usability tales on it?
No, you stopped sharing.
Oh, good. All right, sorry. I'm completely inept at this. So I want to do present now, present a Chrome tab, present this Chrome tab, I believe, and share it. Okay. And I can't make it display on the whole screen. So that's something I don't know how to do, but you can see it. And I'm going to backtrack. Thank you for inviting me to come and talk to you today. The STC chapter, the Orlando chapter, was my professional home for a long time when I lived in Orlando. And I'm very happy to have had the chance to meet so many people and communicate with people in the local area. Visited some work sites while I was in Florida. And usability is my thing. It's what I do, kind of, but I didn't always do usability. How can I make this? Oh, here we go. Look at that. I found it. Usability tales begin with technology stories is the bottom line. And I'm 60, I'll be 68 in a couple weeks. So I have a lot of technology stories. I kind of grew up with the space program. And so I have many very vivid memories related to the space program. The first is related to Sputnik. I was 5 years old when Sputnik was up there. And I have a very vivid memory of my dad taking me outside on a chilly October night and showing me Sputnik and explaining, I guess, to me what the significance of that satellite was. And I was just amazed by it. In fourth grade, we had a radio in the classroom so we could listen to John Glenn's space flight. I was 17 when the first people landed on the moon, and there was a rather a one-sided love interest associated with my memory of that day. My friends and I were at the beach, and the love interest went on to love somebody else. He never did love me, but it's the memory is all tangled up with the moon landing. I would see the NASA control room on TV and wish I could be a space program person. It wasn't too common for girls to want to do technology jobs at that time. But then I finally actually stood and looked at that room in real life at the Kennedy Space Center, and that was kind of a dream come true for me. I watched the Challenger explode live. I was a media specialist at the time, and I was doing some media editing or duplicating, and I had the Challenger, the launch on a satellite feed and watched it while it exploded and turned into a Y. And that was just a traumatic moment. I was in Florida when Columbia exploded Saturday morning, I think Valentine's Day, and I went outside to listen for the sonic boom, which was my habit when I lived there, and it never came. So that was a traumatic but very vivid memory for me. I used to watch launches from my driveway, which I thought was really cool. And now we're sandwiched between two potential SpaceX launch dates, and the space program has come a long way, baby, as have I. I don't think usability came into my head too much related to the space program, but in terms of the internet, usability became something that I thought about a lot. In 1972, I was living in Palau, freshly married, and my first child, my parents' first grandchild, was being born. And the only way to get in touch with my parents at the time was to send a telegram, which somehow got messed up. It would have to hop from island to island across the Pacific. There was no internet, wasn't even a gleam in anybody's eye yet. And somewhere in the transmission, in the island hopping transmission, the phone number got messed up. Two numbers got transposed, and my parents didn't find out that their first grandchild was born for probably close to 2 weeks. My mom was just a wreck, and I don't think she ever forgave me for that. So that was this long distance communication with telegrams and snail mail was really brought home to me as a situation. I never dreamed that we'd move to BitNet, Telnet, Internet Relay Chat. I learned how to program in HTML when I was waiting for my first grandchild to be born in 1994. At UCF, I taught online with WebCT, Blackboard, Canvas. Now we're in the middle of a pandemic, and we're teaching with Zoom and Google Meet, and I'm teaching at Yunnan University in China right now. Last year when I was there, as I just mentioned in the pre-meeting time, I had the students right in front of me, but I had no real solid research abilities because so many of the technologies are blocked. Now I'm recording videos and transmitting them via Panopto, HuskyCast, and but I can't see the students. They're sleeping right now. It's it's 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, or 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So the internet, I think, made more of an impact in terms of my usability topics. I taught my first class as a grad student at Michigan Tech. I wrote a dissertation that I don't think the phrase "if all else fails, read the instructions" is actually in the title of the dissertation, but it was certainly a moment where I realized how difficult it is to learn new things. And my dissertation kind of chronicled media representations of the commercial internet. So usability, the idea that things could be plug and play was not true. Things are never plug and play. There's always some usability issues. I've taught at UCF. We got a usability lab, and that was very expensive early on, before TechSmith-Morey or remote usability or anything else was available. I oversaw studies of library websites, or I conducted them myself, either one, museums, online games, or learning games of various kinds, instruction manuals. Lately, we've been working, my colleague and I, with citizen science apps and having a group of computer science students create the apps, and then students in human factors and technical communication write documentation and conduct usability. So that is a 3-course, probably 100 students altogether, very complicated process that I'm very grateful for his organizational skills. I'm interested because of the Chinese students in understanding how usability, how usable translation apps are. And there comes, you get involved with the back translation, getting things, making sure that things can be translated in one app and then back translated with another to make sure that you're saying it correctly. And navigating the world in Kunming last year, where almost nobody speaks English or is willing to speak English, was a usability challenge that I was hoping to go back this year and fix my, fill some of the gaps that I had with the usability of the city. But 6 million people or something like that is pretty wild. So with all of that, I think the I'm just babbling in a sense, because the technologies that I was introduced to over a 68-year lifespan created a person who made a career as a usability specialist. And I'm kind of, I guess, proud of the career, but also shocked and awed at that it even happened. And UCF was a big part of that. Being in Florida and being able to work with the Center for this Institute for Simulation and Training, the Orlando Science Center, various organizations, even the Fort Lauderdale Museum of Discovery and Science, lots of places like that. Having those high-tech folks, one of the naval labs over in Research Park, lots of different groups we were able to I was able to work with and hone my skills as well as my knowledge. So that's all I can tell you, but I'm happy to answer any questions or commiserate with you or anything else. I'm gonna stop sharing and try to go back to where I was so I can see who else is here. What questions do you have?
Karla, this is
go ahead.
Sorry, WC. This is Deborah. I just was curious as to, did you set up formal settings for usability? Did you have labs? Did you have recordings? Did you have, what kind of scenarios did you have in some of your usability studies or doing usability?
Most of the time, we did have a lab. I got an internal grant maybe a year or two after I got to UCF, and we set up a little lab in the communication building. It wasn't our property, so we got some flack from the people who owned the space. And so that lab got moved over to Colburn Hall when, right around the time the Texas and Technology PhD program started. And we had a little room, a little observation room. The lab proper functioned as a space where people could work. And we had these, I think it was too complicated. We had all this camera equipment to set up and all this calibration to do. And I think with today's technology, it's a lot easier. But most of the usability studies I've done have been on-site. I really prefer on-site formative usability rather than lab-based summative usability. There's this dude named Jacob Nielsen, whom you've all heard of, who calls it discount usability. You have 5 people and you try to find out if they, what they get, what they understand, and you do that repeatedly throughout the process. But I don't call it discount usability. I call it situated usability, because it's really, you're in the space where the people feel comfortable. I've observed in the Orlando Science Center. I've observed in the Fort Lauderdale Museum of Discovery and Science. watching people go through exhibits and finding out how long they last and what they do when they get there. Really interesting, much more interesting than confirming that your product is usable after it's already made. So we have a lab here too, and I haven't used it, and now I'm retiring, so I won't have a chance probably. But does that help? Does that answer?
Oh yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I was just wondering because there's so many different ways to do it, and situations where we would have to partner with unit testing, or go in and kind of try to not let them know what we're doing while they're doing something else. And I was just curious what you encountered in your career.
Yeah, we have in academia, you better have IRB approval. You're not going in to watch anybody do anything and they don't know you're watching them. That would be bad. So you have to get human subjects approval in my line of work. But I guess if you're inside of a corporate environment, everybody should be willing to offer their services for the good of the company.
Thank you.
Karla, this is WC. Got a technology question for you. What is it you're going to miss most, and what have you waited longest that you're looking forward to do?
Not go to meetings is the answer to this. Only go to meetings when I have to. What I'm going to miss is the people, and I've already started missing them. I missed my Florida peeps terribly when I moved to Michigan, and then right after I moved to Michigan, I got on Facebook, so I have this relationship with some of my Florida peeps on Facebook. But I miss going into the office for a couple hours at a time and talking face-to-face with people, and Zoom isn't the same. Mm-hmm. But I am looking forward to I have had days, I used to call it Wacky Wednesday, where I'd have 6 meetings in one day or something like that. And that was just ridiculous and exhausting, and I don't think anybody needs that kind of pressure in their lives.
Sometimes meetings about meetings, right?
Yeah, exactly. Let's have a meeting to plan the meeting. Good Lord. Yeah. So I'm going to enjoy, and I like to knit. So I'm going to enjoy knitting in the middle of the day. Good question.
So I did come prepared with some question.
Okay.
So we've already covered what the field of usability has changed over your tenure. The next question I had is the Z layout, right? We learned that in school that you are supposed to put your content in every corner of the website. However, now we're walking around with vertical devices that scroll.
Yeah.
How should we approach that now? Designing for the content, for a screen that's vertical and smaller, and is it still the Z layout?
Well, Western people still start at the upper left-hand corner, don't they? Mm-hmm. I mean, you're talking about designing for people like us, people who read English, who have been educated, and so I think we still, what would be fun? I don't know the answer to that. I bet there's somebody in this room who knows the answer, but I bet it would be fun to do an eye tracking study and give people content on a phone and see where their eyes go. I don't know if you can do eye tracking with such a small screen, but I would that's a good question, and I would like to know. I would assume that they still start at the top and maybe not go all the way across and all the way down and all the way across again, but I assume that they follow the Western reading patterns. But we should have a really...
sorry. Typically, I follow the same pattern with my eyes, but websites tend to also shrink their layout on a phone so that all the text is right where you need it in the center, and anything else is in the hamburger menus.
Yes, the old hamburger
I just
menu.
learned that term, hamburger menu, but not too long ago. I think it's very descriptive.
And now you can't unsee it.
Yeah, I learned it last year from those computer science students that we were collaborating with, and I thought it was such an amazing thing. But you're right, and it took me a long time to think about looking under hamburger menus, and even in this environment, it didn't dawn on me that I should look at the ... dots until Alex told me, oh, there's ... dots up here, and there's also ... dots down here. I have to look. So we have these new visual cues that really aren't necessarily the Z, because the hamburger menu can be in any corner.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have to be. I think they might usually be in the upper right-hand corner, but then the company logo or the identifying information is in the upper left-hand corner. So
That
that's a
also
good question.
depends on what site you're going to, because I've been to a site on my phone several times where it has a hamburger menu on both sides with the logo center.
Wow.
Wow. And do the two modules expand, or how big is the content in the middle there?
I don't know if I can actually show it, but it does an overlay where the content in the center is slightly dimmed so that you can see the menu a little better, because it's a panel that pops out.
Piling the information on, figuratively piling information on top of other information in order to make that happen.
I don't know how well you can see that, but I'm trying to get it in view as much as possible.
Yeah.
Make it big, yeah. Oh, wow. That's Lowe's. We can all look at Lowe's on our phones and see see how that works. But that sounds like somebody who didn't just dump a website to make it possible to open a website on their phone. This is somebody who did some small screen design. And are there best practices for that yet? Or I don't know.
Yeah, I think that you've got websites that are set up for mobile with responsive design, and then you have companies that write mobile apps for their users to use that give you the true mobile experience instead of just a responsive website.
Right.
How good is the responsive design?
It depends on the developers, and that's a big question I have is in software development, which is my area now. How do you make usability an important part of software development instead of an afterthought?
Yeah.
And we kind of call it UX, I think, the user experience.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like, oh, that's just a nice to have, but it's so critical to being able to use the tools that you're building.
Yeah. I was trying to log in on my phone to something that I normally log into on the computer, and it was a nightmare because, my credit union now, when I click on the login little space to log in, it makes it bigger. And so when I hit enter, it shrinks down and my password box comes bigger. So I guess that's an innovation that I kind of like, but I still hate looking at anything that's too interactive on my phone because I can't, my thumbs are too fat and I'm too stiff. My hands are too stiff and I just can't do it.
Well,
I can't see it.
There's also like generational differences. So if I take my kids, they can use a phone like nobody's business. I'm in technology and they know way more about it than I do and they're children.
Yeah.
So people who are learning it, like we came up through all these old school systems and we're learning all these modern systems. To them, that's just the norm.
Yeah. Pretty scary. I don't think I have much to teach college students anymore.
Yeah,
Rhetoric.
one of the apps you might want to look at which is a nightmare, is UPS. If you go on the phone, I don't know what they've done, but it's a usability nightmare.
Mm.
Is it one of the cascading menus or something? Because those are always, they never
No,
work
everything's
on
on
the phone
top of
correctly.
each other. It's like they've developed it and hopefully and had it, render into an app, and it's just not working, and you can't find anything, and it's real big, and if you just go open it and look at it, I'm going, nope, I'm not doing it. So I give up before I ever, before I'd rather just I'll just open my computer rather than look on the phone. It's horrible.
I was just giving this lecture to the Chinese students where we were reading, well, they're going to read it next week. I'm having to give the lecture today, but it had to do with the Nielsen-Norman Group's Usability 101 piece. And, it says, if it doesn't work well, people are going to abandon it. But obviously, UPS's people aren't abandoning UPS. In fact, it's more important now than it ever was. So maybe the need for usability is a myth. maybe we can get away without it. People have to do the work, then they have to use whatever you give them, right? No? I'm being provocative right now.
Well,
So if you make money from software, you're more inclined to make it usable because your competitor's system is out there and your customers will go to them if their system is better. But when you're
at the same time, if WC will agree with me on this one, there's more money in sustainment at some point.
Probably.
So follow on contracts and supportability and all that.
But you follow systems where you have to use that system and you don't have a choice.
Right.
In the comments, like I'm in Maryland, and the Maryland unemployment system is so broken that the poor people who are trying to get their money can't use it, but they can't go somewhere else. They have to use the system.
Yeah.
Same thing in Florida.
Yeah.
I think Michigan's is pretty bad too, but I don't think it's as bad as Florida's. I've heard horror stories about Florida's system.
It is bad here, definitely.
So we had a question in the chat from Bart. Dr. K, what sort of usability challenges do you think future tech practitioners will have to face?
Well, the transition and the continuing transition to mobile apps and our situation right now where everything is online is going to highlight some of the real challenges that we're faced with. I was talking to somebody about online medical appointments. And so there are usability and accessibility issues, and there are also security issues big time with that kind of system. I remember when I couldn't even have my blood work faxed from one doctor's office to another because it was deemed insecure, and now they just call them up and get them. I mean, it's so much more open, and yet cybersecurity is the thing that we fear the most besides the coronavirus. So I really think the transition to smaller screens and the movement to even more people working online and having to connect both visually and informationally are probably our two concerns. I haven't checked my credit bureau lately to see if all my online transactions have started to come back to haunt me. But those are two challenges that are connected both to usability and to security, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I had a follow-up question to the Z layout. I remember in your classes, you would say that the user would make a decision about a website within the first second. Is it even faster now that we're on mobile devices?
Did I say that? I'll relate this. I don't know if it's the first second. That might be too fast, but I'll relate this to the work that I did with exhibits in museums. In museums, they have this concept called dwell time. How long will a visitor to the museum stick with a particular exhibit? And it's like 15 seconds. So we spent a lot of energy creating these interactive learning environments, and people would just go and they'd say, oops, okay. All right, I see how that works. Off they go. So the dwell times are a real concern, both for people in technical communication and for people in curation and museum studies. I think if you know what your alternatives are, then it probably is pretty quick. You look and you say, this doesn't look much like the one that I'm used to. I'm just going to go back to the thing I'm used to. So are standards more important then? Are best practices more important? If your website looks too much like everybody else's, then there's no innovation. But if it doesn't look enough like everybody else's, then nobody's going to use it because they won't be able to figure it out quick enough.
Yeah, it's always interesting when I'm on my, let's say a bank website, and they do a whole new layout, and they say, oh, here's a new layout, and you can go back to the old one if you want to, but here's the new layout, and there's, they're really excited about their new product. Then they're like, oh, if you want, you can go back to the old one, if you really want to.
Yeah.
But then you get used to the new one, and you forget what that old one looked like before. So.
Facebook is notorious, or not so much anymore, but when I first started using it, they were changing the layout all the time, and I'd be mad. I'm getting off Facebook. This is so stupid.
Yep.
But
who remembers the message bubbles that would fill your screen? Yeah. There was like little floating heads all over your layout. Yeah.
I think I missed that. Thankfully, I missed that one.
I think it lasted like 2 weeks. I think the users revolted.
Facebook has bigger fish to fry now. They have to try to keep us from cheating on each other, telling the Russians what we're up to.
Okay. And my next question. Can you give us your most memorable example of a document or program that was not designed with the user in mind?
You should have slipped me this question ahead of time. There are so many. Okay, this isn't a document, but here's a word. When I first moved to Florida, I had to have some dental work done. And the dentist said, oh, we're going to have to get you in for some root planing. And that phrase scared me. That is not a user-centered phrase. So I called my old dentist and I said, what is root planing? And he told me it was just a scraping of the teeth to get rid of plaque that had hardened there. And I thought, my old dentist did that every week. This new dentist has me go into a special room and pay extra money that isn't covered by my insurance. So that was a really user-unfriendly experience. And there are many like that, not just related to my teeth, but to what's your best example, Alex?
Let's see. Let's go around the room. How about that? And let me think about that one.
There you
I've
go.
already got one if you want to come to me.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead, Julia.
I can think of Windows 8. I'm typically a very tech-savvy person. I can
That's
adapt
an excellent example.
anything.
I forgot about that.
Got a new laptop when Windows 8 was a thing. 1 hour, including setup. I'm done. Get this thing off my machine.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us were that way about Windows Vista too. Right after 7.
Yes.
And then they finally kind of settled in. Windows 10 is okay. Vista was. Still trying to think.
Carolyn says any government website. I use usability.gov all the time for both as a textbook for my classes and for my own reference. I must go there every day. They just redid the whole site. And so you can still find things by searching, but they've added some new categories, and they have some government-only areas or government-specific areas. So yeah, I'm not, my old links don't exactly work anymore, so I had to find, but I can find the stuff again. It's just.
If you want to get a NASA person to cuss at you, all you have to do is say one word, wind chill, and they will just start yelling at you. It's their file system, their shared file system, and it was.
Oh.
If you want to, it's basically, however many thousand people at NASA, each one has their own filing system in their own mind, and they'll dump it in one place. And yeah, so if you wanted to tell us, he had somebody cuss at you, just say it's in wind chill. Yeah, right.
So I've got a UCF related one. My brother is 17 years old. He's going off to college, starting at UCF in the fall. I'm very excited for him. He is planning to major in computer science, and he texted me the other day and said, I'm trying to register for classes, and I can't figure out how to get to where I can register for classes. And I was thinking, well, I first registered back in 2008. I vaguely remember what the UI was like, so I logged in with him to look at his screen, and it's exactly the same as 2008 through PeopleSoft, and it still doesn't make any sense. It's like, oh, you go to Student Center, and then from there you can go to Plan, and then you can select courses and add them to your cart. I understand why they don't change the system, because there's a lot of stuff in the back end going on. But it's just one of those things where I think I just had this idea that somehow it magically would have changed in the intervening, decade and change.
Yeah. Well, it's really hard to get the technology to upgrade with that many moving parts. I just can't even imagine
without
it.
disruption. Yeah, I'm sure, because it's not like the system can go down. So it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, I guess it makes sense. But it was probably the most jarring user experience, session I've had in a while.
So, okay, so I thought of mine, and it actually goes along with Bethany. And you might remember this, Dr. K, in 2003 approximately, when UCF first adopted PeopleSoft. The whole system, the landing wasn't very smooth, let's say, especially in the arena of financial aid. The financial aid was delayed pretty much until in the fall semester until November. So like checks came in November after you'd already been in school for 3 months. And it was the process before was very straightforward, and now you had to jump through 5 different hoops with finding the next button, and then did you submit? I don't know if you submitted, and people had to double check and triple check, and it was not a smooth rollout.
Yeah. We still use PeopleSoft, and we still use BandWeb. I don't think we use PeopleSoft anymore. We use a different system now but they're hard. I don't think like a financial aid expert, and neither does any student. All they want is their money, right? All they want is their tuition bill, not to keep coming every week, but to be paid at some point. So those administrative systems are really challenging.
And I think our own Mark Ray ended up making a career out of PeopleSoft there at UCF. He was there for a good decade. Has since moved on to Verizon.
I worked with Mark one summer doing travel instructions for filling out travel vouchers and planning trips and stuff like that. That was really fun, but I had 2 little projects. They probably thought I was going to do 5, and I ended up only getting 2 done because there was a lot of misunderstanding. But he's not there anymore, is he?
No, I think he moved on to the Verizon up in Lake Mary. So does anybody else have any usability tales?
I know there's one that I can't stand, and I stopped going there because of it, because you had to make an appointment. But here in Orlando, right over by Waterford Lakes, which is near the school, it's kind of silly, but it's called Eye Salon. And I don't know if anybody's ever been in there, but it's a suite of vendors like nail salons, massage therapists, hair people. All those people are in this. It's really neat inside, but to get on their site or to get on their app and to make an appointment with the proper vendor, the proper hair person, and there must be like 5 hair people, 10 hair people, nail people. I never got it. So I ended up calling the person that did my hair, and it got to the point where it just got so frustrating. I said, I'm not even going to bother, because you couldn't make an appointment. And that's all I wanted to do, was make an appointment. And those type of things have always been incredibly frustrating. Nobody's did any kind of usability on it. They couldn't have. It was so very rudimentary and very non-user friendly.
Yeah. That's the kind of thing that those everyday activities are the kinds of things that make you crazy. It's like all I need is a manicure, and I can't make an appointment with the most convenient nail salon in my area. It's a problem. I would say it's a problem. I saw Bart popped up with the NASA's Inspires program.
Bart, if you want to elaborate on the NASA Inspires.
Inspires, it's the program that they use for companies to upload proposals, to submit proposals. And the bloody thing is just awful. Each member of the e-personnel has to create an account and sign on and say, yes, I agree to be on a proposal. Mm-hmm. Then you've got to jump through all these hoops to make sure that you've submitted this, and this, and you hit. There's no button that magically says you have submitted your proposal. Here's your confirmation number. And I've had, with one employer, we lost like 3 different proposals because we couldn't determine whether we had submitted the proposal or not. And when you try to complain, one time we complained and I said, look, we got 3 people with 5 advanced degrees between us, and none of us can figure out how to work your damn system. So you need to fix it. Yeah. And they still couldn't. They're like, you need to figure it out. They no support either. So
they need to create their personas, right?
Yeah.
That goes back to my government website comment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I work for NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology. We have a lot of similar issues, and it comes down to people who work at NIST are researchers. They're not software developers, so they contract it out, and they contract it out to the lowest bidder. And it's a work that's a fixed document that doesn't talk about what if the requirements change, or what if we can't do this, or what if we didn't think about that before. So as feature creep or scope creep kicks in, you have nowhere to go because you have this fixed statement of work that doesn't allow you to change something without incurring a lot more cost. So you end up cutting corners, and you end up with a site like that. So
No, this is a good forum to share all your ideas. Deborah, could you share with us your famous story about how you saved your company money doing user tests and all that?
Let's see. Let me think back. Doing the user tests. Hang on just a second. I'm trying to remember the cost of the calls for the call center. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I think you're on mute right now.
Sorry.
That's all right.
One of the things was to show value in what we did as a group in the product documentation area. And we were doing a conversion, I think it was, to the tokens, where you would upload. Sorry, I get kind of foggy sometimes. Where you upload the token before you can log in, and security issues. This is a number of years ago, and the instructions had to go out to everyone in the company, which there was about 10,000 people. But the engineer wrote the instructions, and they didn't put it through to the documentation team. And what ended up happening is it went out 2 weeks prior to the launch of the new system, and within the first week of them, they sent it out 2 weeks prior, but didn't send anything out as a reminder or an attachment. Here are the instructions again, right before launch. And within the first week, they had like 1,000 calls saying, I can't figure it out. Where do I go? Well, come to find out, when I got it, because I was an employee, I got it just like everyone else. I'm going, what is this? And I looked at it. One step was missing. 2 were transposed out of order. So everyone was getting it wrong. So ended up calling the service desk, over 1,000 times in the first week. So I went to the manager of the service department support. I said, how much does it cost you every time someone calls, so tech support? He goes, it's first level 1 is $20 a pop. We've averaged it to figure out that of time and, labor, whatever. It's $20 a pop. And if there's a more severe problem, then it goes to level 2 support. But end up level 1 is $20 a pop. Well, people were calling, and this level support was getting them in and out, in 7 minutes or less. But that was still 7 minutes or less, $20 a pop. And I said, you realize that if it had gone through us, it would have cost about $800 in time for us to review that document, look at it, test it, do some usability on it, and come back, and you would have mitigated like all of that. So it ended up costing, there was more than 1,000. It ended up costing like about $20,000. No, it was 1,000. $20,000 that first week in tech support calls, and we could have mitigated at least 80% of that if they had just let us test the document before it went out, or let us write it. And it was definitely eye-opening for them. And when I told the tech support guy, and he's going, oh my gosh. And once we looked at the document, we gave it back to them, and they redistributed. It cut their tech support costs. And then when we posted it at the internal knowledge center, and then then they didn't get any more calls on that kind of thing.
And that shows the value of our profession. I love that story.
Yeah, it's a really good story, and people understand money. I was thinking about I've been teaching these Chinese students about let me see if I can share a screen, about the user experience honeycomb. Can you see it?
Not yet.
Or am I sharing it wrong? I'm always sharing everything wrong. Share a Chrome tab. Okay. This one. Share. This user experience honeycomb. Can you see it now?
Yes.
With all the attributes of usability or user experience design, and guess what's right at the middle? No matter which version of it you look at, right at the middle is value, because it costs money to do this wrong. It costs a huge amount of money to do it wrong, and so we try not to do it wrong, so that you can save a lot of money. 20,000 people buys a lot of technical writers. $20,000 a week buys a lot of technical writers, usability experts.
That'll teach you.
Definitely.
Well, this was fun.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are all still a great group.
Yay.
I miss Orlando. I miss my peeps.
Yeah, so let's go around the room, and let's some cheers for Dr. Kitalong, and for her to enjoy her retirement, right? So
yeah,
I guess if you have a drink nearby, and grab it, and let's do a cheers or something.
And bugging out.
Sorry, I'm not sharing my camera. Not right now.
No, I will say, Dr. K really did have an impact on my studies. Even back in the early 2000s, the internet was already starting to be the way of life. And I did one of my final projects on the evolution, and it was a video. It was one of the first videos that she had received as a final project. It was the evolution of the movie trailer. So we're in the 80s. It was explanation, and it was narrated. It was in a time where so I transposed the two Terminator movies, or the Terminator 1 and then Terminator 3 that had just come out, which was the first one was very, it was meandering, and it was had to explain what a robot was, and had to explain why we were here and what we were doing, and had to set the scene, and there was a long narration. And the 2003 version was just quick cuts, and you knew who the characters were, and you different shooting and chases and everything. It was loud, and there was words on the screen and barely any narration at all. And so I took a couple other I think it was I think that was the time when the unfortunate Indiana Jones sequel had come out, and so they did the same type of treatment for that one. Yeah. We can all forget about that movie, the fourth one, but that's the same way that they treated that trailer, and it just showing the way that visual communication is so important to being able to communicate, let's say. And then as the video has now become more important in the way that it is our way of communication now, the YouTube generation.
Yeah.
So everybody wants their content immediately, right? So we as technical communicators have to evolve and start kind of bringing the content out of paper into video and into real time. So. Yeah. I don't know. She was on the ground floor of that even 20 years ago.
Multimodal composition, we call it.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for saying that, and thank you for reminding me of that fun project.
I probably have it somewhere on some old CD somewhere. But now it'll probably get pulled off of YouTube for licenses or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Who knows?
But yeah, does anybody else have any words?
I'll go. So
Sure.
You guys don't really know me. I just sort of appeared as this crazy stranger from the internet. Karla was one of my first bosses. When I was a student at Michigan Tech, I worked in the library, the computing library, and she was my boss. This is before you were teaching.
Yeah, way before. Yeah. So that was when I first started working at the computer center and started being in charge of documentation for some unknown reason.
But you were super inspiring and feisty as heck.
I was feisty?
Yes, you were, because you were just very polite, but if somebody did the wrong thing or messed with you or your staff.
Oh yeah, you mess with my babies, I'm after you. You're not getting, and there were some very assertive men.
Yes.
Who would just try to walk all over people. I think that was the first time I didn't know the word yet, but workplace bullying. I think there was quite a bit of workplace bullying going on there, and I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was not good.
Yeah, and so I was an STC CS major there, and being a woman in a technical field where that university didn't have a whole lot of women in technical fields there. Yeah. Engineering school, I learned a lot about how to assert myself and stand up for myself and represent and say, hey, I belong here too. So thank you for being so inspirational.
Carolyn used to wear this big parka, and in her inside pocket, she would have a bag of peanut butter cups.
Nice.
Reese's peanut butter cups, the little ones. And that's what she lived on. And she was this quite energetic young person.
I don't have all that energy anymore, but I have 3 kids, so there's
Yeah, you have 3 kids and a few additional years under your belt. But I'm still pretty impressed by the Reese's peanut butter cups coming out of your inside pocket.
Anyway, the cool thing is watching your career progress as well. Because you went from working for IT services at Michigan Tech to being this inspiring professor. Oh, stop it. Look how
You don't have to be afraid to take chances, to say yes when you think you should probably say no. I might be working for NASA. I might have been one of the hidden figures people, not in math, but it makes me mad that I was too scared to think that could have done it. And so, I think part of it is just, I like money, so I would always do whatever I could do to make a little extra money on the side. So I wrote 2 Unix books when I was working at IT because they were going to pay me, and I didn't really get much credit for it, but I got money. And I always say I wrote the one book between Halloween and New Year's Eve. That was what I did. But you just say yes. When people ask you to do things, you say, I can do that. And then you do it. And then you learn something, and other people think you're inspiring when all you are is just kind of curious and antsy.
But isn't that part of being inspiring, is just being someone who does cool things and demonstrates?
I just think it's funny that people say that I'm inspiring. It's sort of weird.
Yeah.
I'm just me,
Accept it.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of things. Don't be afraid to call your thesis Mars Needs Women. Even if people don't want you to call it Mars Needs Women, we eventually had to make that title go away because it was too wild and crazy. But that's what the thesis was about, right?
It was about getting other underrepresented audiences into the space advocacy community. So, and that, see, I've been able to get it down to 1 sentence now. I'm getting better. Yeah. It only took me 18 years.
Whatever it takes. So nothing happens quickly, or doesn't always happen quickly.
No.
We are blessed to have had you.
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm blessed to have been had. I was at UCF for 9 years, from 1999 to 2008, and it was a really good 9 years. And then I had to come home. When I got an offer from the university in my hometown, I had to come home. And people thought I was crazy for moving north from Florida, but
it's cold up there still, isn't it?
It's cold. But you know what, Bart?
Yeah.
I understand there's such a thing as a coat. That's what you said when you moved to Washington, D.C., and I'll never forget that. Okay, what is Carolyn saying?
Yeah. There's always more layers.
Oh, yeah. I would go north before I would go south. You can always put on more layers. You can only take off so much. And that is true. That's one of the things I used to say about Florida. But I used to always say you don't have to shovel heat.
Yeah.
Which is also true. So, I like Florida in the winter, and I like the UP in the summer. Well, thank you for inviting me, guys. I'm sure that there's something else going on that you're supposed to be doing, like watching your Thursday night shows instead of watching the Brady Bunch.
Thank you so much for allowing us to get some last minute knowledge from some wisdom.
I'm still going to be working a lot.
Excellent.
What's the countdown?
Retirement will give me time to work. I won't have to go to any meetings.
What's the countdown?
So I'll be around, and I'll still be using my Michigan Tech ID, and so.
What's the countdown number, Karla?
Email me. What?
What's the countdown number now?
Oh, you know what? I can't find my countdown thing.
Oh no!
But it's June 30th, so it must be getting close to 30 days. Facebook did something weird to me. I haven't used my countdown thing, and now I can't find it on my page. I'll have to look again, and I'll post the number. Oh. But it's around 32 days, maybe something like that.
Wow! Congratulations.
Sweet.
Getting there. I started 200 and some days. Maybe 400 and some days, because I started a year and a half early. I had a terrible last year. Not this year, but the year before this was a terrible, terrible, stressful year. So I was really ready to count down. 5 years, Carolyn? You look about 12 still. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy.
Thank you for joining us.